Two brothers clawed their way out of the same gutter. One became a crime lord, the other a half-man, half-snake supervillain. Let's get into the video and find out the story of Bushmaster. John McIver's life began in the heat and hunger of Saint Croix, where he and his younger brother Quincy survived as street urchins, slipping through the markets and alleyways with empty pockets and quick hands. Quincy grew up idolizing John. In his eyes, his older brother could do no wrong, and he followed him with the blind devotion only a younger sibling can. But admiration didn't make Quincy faster, sharper, or harder. John was all of those things. Quincy wasn't, and John made him pay for every mistake. That dynamic crystallized when Quincy was just 12. John pulled him into a petty theft, a simple grab-and-run job at a local shop. Quincy, inexperienced and nervous, was caught by the shopkeeper and disciplined before he managed to slip away. When he finally found his brother, John didn't comfort him, he interrogated him. He demanded to know whether Quincy had ratted him out. Quincy swore that he hadn't, but John didn't believe him. Later that night, John returned to the shop and beat the shopkeeper to death, severing any path back to innocence for either brother. From that moment on, John's descent into the criminal underworld was inevitable. His talent for violence made him indispensable muscle for gunrunner Herv Argosi, and as John rose, he dragged Quincy along behind him. But Quincy was still that same frightened boy who lagged a step behind. During a police raid on one of Argosi's operations, panic overtook Quincy. A helicopter thundered overhead, sirens closed in. Terrified, more of John's wrath than the law, Quincy dove into the water and swam until his lungs burned. When he finally surfaced for air, a police boat was bearing down on him. Its propellers tore through him, severing all four limbs and leaving him a quadriplegic. Quincy woke in a hospital bed with no memory of what had happened, but John was there to explain it to him. John didn't console his brother. Instead, he informed Quincy he was leaving for Europe and he had taken a new name, John Bushmaster. Then he walked out, leaving Quincy broken in every way a person can be broken. Quincy spiraled into depression until Roxxon executive Seth Volkler approached him with an offer: experimental bionic replacements. Desperate, Quincy agreed. What he didn't know was that Roxxon planned to graft a biomechanical serpent tail onto him instead of legs. Afterwards, they promised him human limbs after a year of testing, but Roxxon collapsed before that promise could be fulfilled. Quincy was left trapped in his monstrous new form, abandoned again. Meanwhile, John Bushmaster thrived. In Europe, he seized control of the Maggia's operations, expanding his empire into the United States. In New York, he believed he was manipulating Misty Knight, undercover as Maya Corday, into becoming his confidant and lover. But when Bushmaster was hired to assassinate Iron Fist, Misty's true partner, she blew her cover and fled. Enraged, Bushmaster blackmailed Luke Cage into hunting Misty down. He also abducted Cage's friends, Dr. Noah Bernstein and Claire Temple, dragging them to Seagate Prison and threatening Claire's life, unless Bernstein repeated the Power Man experiment on him. The procedure worked, but in the ensuing battle with Cage, Bushmaster was caught in an explosion and seemingly killed. Bushmaster survived, but his body continued to slowly mutate into unliving metal. Time passed and Bushmaster resurfaced, having his agents capture Bernstein and his wife Emma, forcing Bernstein to attempt to cure him. He also had Cage abducted, as his physiology was needed to stabilize the process. As Bernstein commenced with the procedure, Iron Fist intervened, freeing Cage. Without the cure, Bushmaster's transformation was completed and he became inert steel, frozen in a permanent immobile state. Years later, the McIver legacy resurfaced through John's son, Cruz. Obsessed with perfecting the Power Man process, Cruz kidnapped the Bernsteins and lured Cage to the facility. He then transported Cage and his father's steel body back to Saint Croix, initiating a power transfer ritual meant to elevate himself. But John Bushmaster was still conscious inside the metal shell. He reversed the transfer, killing Cruz and draining Cage's abilities. Cage battled John, who was now calling himself Power Master. As they battled, Cage was able to overload Power Master with a high-voltage cable, detonating the energy inside him until he exploded. As for Quincy, he eventually took up the Bushmaster name himself. Whether to honor John or spite him remains a mystery. Quincy found belonging among the Serpent Society, where Sidewinder welcomed him without judgment. Despite their shared origins, John and Quincy emerged with radically different forms of power. John, after undergoing Burstein's experimental cellular regeneration procedure, developed superhuman strength, stamina, durability, and the ability to absorb external energy. His powers were extraordinarily increased as Power Master. Quincy became a fusion of man and machine, with a 14-foot biomechanical tail capable of binding opponents, crushing them, and rapid movement. Quincy developed a combat style built around constriction and ambushing. Well, that's the origin of the brothers who have both used the codename Bushmaster. That does it for this one. Thanks for watching. Peace.